obviously isn't your typical Zoom that you're expecting. I've had to record this separately because I forgot to record the audio. But I'm just going to run through all the potential setups we've got for the following week, and that'll pretty much be it. So obviously starting with gold was one of the ones that I was told to look at. We're obviously still in the downtrend until we break these levels of structures over here. We had a nice 2-hour, 3-hour inefficiency fill here, and price came back up, tapped whatever that was a reference point within here. And if you go to the hourly, we had a nice break of structure here to the downside. We had another inefficiency fill here and another one here. So what I want to look for is, if we go all the way down to the 3-minute, is this sponsored candle over here. Now I consider that a sponsored candle because that actually came up, right, and it tapped whatever that was in this candle over here and rejected nicely, and we got a full body candle within here. So that's quite nice, and I'd like to see that. I'd like to see this move happen. We don't really have much else to go through really. There's obviously plenty of inefficiencies within here, but it doesn't really follow price's narrative as much as this does. This is still quite untapped, unfulfilled, and there's also an inefficiency within there as well. Let's go to Euro GBP. Okay, so this was actually a setup that I personally took. Let's talk you guys through it. We obviously had a misleading upside push, and after that we had a strong falling knife rejection to the downside. Now, for people who even know this strategy, they'd consider this here a BOS. They'd consider this here a shift in momentum as we failed to break this low over here, and they'd probably be looking for buys anywhere within this region over here. Now, why that is wrong is because we technically didn't have upside corporation. Yeah, we broke these levels of structures, but if you look at our macro direction and even on the monthly, we're still quite bearish, and this is potentially a distribution schematic in play, but it's still a bit too early to decide that. So what I was actually looking for was this 2-hour inefficiency here, which was also the 40-minute fill right here. Now, this trade gave me a stop loss of 2 pips, and I took it at the very top, which isn't something I usually do. But the only reason why I did that was because obviously my target is this break of structure down here. Here. Now, the only reason why I took this trade is if you go to the 1-minute and you look at volume, price showed instability moving into that region. So look here how we had decrease in volume, and look here how price was creating higher highs. That shows divergence as there's instability in this upside move. Price is moving up, but the amount of buyers in the market is decreasing. Now you pair that up with your POI, and that's how you get your entry. Obviously for this one I had a 2 pip stop loss, and price is currently running in around 16% profit, and that's only because I forgot to close my second trade on the 10 pip raw. Let me just get some water. But yeah, moving into next week, I'm not really looking at anything in particular. My only kind of thing I'd note is that this inefficiency fill is still very much on the cards, but the only thing that's kind of telling me otherwise is this nice strong bearish downside push away from that 40-minute fill and 2-hour 50% inefficiency. So we'll see how this plays out into next week, and hopefully if we get some strong breaks of structure to the downside, maybe look to add more sell positions onto this. If we go to GBP USD, right, so we're obviously been in an uptrend since September. prices failed to break any of these lows, and in particular this upside push over here. Now what I was kind of keeping an eye out for was, let's take that, was this 1 hour inefficiency right about here, which was tapped perfectly. I mean, we just about missed that, but it was also the I think it was a 25-minute fill, no, 30-minute fill, 40-minute fill, yeah. There's also the 40-minute fill right here. Now let's zoom into the lower time frame. Let's go all the way down to the 1 minute. Okay. Okay, cool, perfect. Actually, you know what? Let's go to the 4 minute. Where was the 3, 2, 1? Okay, cool, perfect. Yeah, here we are. So notice how price obviously came down, right? Took out obviously this level of structure over there, and then what we had was a strong push to the upside and a scalp break of structure here. Now the important thing to keep a note of is that we returned into this candle over here where you could have had your entry, right? So your stop loss could have been here. I mean, your entry could have been here, and your stop loss could have been right below the candle, so right about here, and your break of structure would have been up here. Now what's important to note is that we didn't have a BOS, and price actually came and tapped our entry multiple times, and until we finally had a break of structure over here. Now it's so key to not break even on your position until you get your BOS. Remember, after you've entered the trade, you've basically accepted to that 1% risk. If that 1%, if price hits your stop loss, you've only lost 1%. So just relax, okay? Let the trade take its course. If it hits stop loss, reverse engineer it and understand why prices hit your stop loss. When you enter the trade, also look at all the potential ways this could go against you. Don't just think, oh, buy, it could mitigated this, like it could go up in this way and this way. No, train your brain to like see all the potential different outcomes and kind of like weigh it out and see if it's worth the risk. Now in this case, price came, it came deep into our stop loss, and then right after it did that, we had a BOS here. And then basically what I'm looking for next week is this beautiful, let me just delete all of this beautiful 10-minute sponsored candle right here. And this sponsored candle actually took out equal lows right here, so this low here and this low over here, and the sponsored candle actually also lines up with this inefficiency fill. So I'm looking at this general region over here for buy positions. Now the only downside to this is that this is around 15 pips away. Yep, it's around 15 pips away, so we could hit this during Asian Open, but I'd kind of like to see price consolidate the Asian, purge down for London Open, and then move back up and away in time for New York, and then obviously get that liquidity injection to push this even further. Let's go through Euro USD actually. I think it's the last, yeah, it's the last pair I have to go through. So let's go to the 2 hour. So again on Euro USD, we had an uptrend, and then we had a misleading break of structure to the downside, breaking this level of structure over here. Now upon the retracement, look, you'd never buy a so-called falling knife. You'd never buy against or sell against high momentum, which is what we had here. Now again, people would have identified this as a BOS and would have been like, oh, inefficiency fill, yeah. And look, right after the inefficiency fill, what happened? We had a rejection. We had no, sorry, we had a reaction, but not a follow through. Because what did price do? It actually returned back up against the sellers. So obviously you would have been caught out there. If you look at the 2 hour, no, sorry, let's just go back a second. I was looking at this trading range now, seeing as we broke structure to the upside very strongly and we sustained price action. I was now obviously still looking to long this. Now, if you look at this range over here and this range over here, what we actually see is this general area, make this gray, where we had a so-called discounted price. Now, what I wanted to do was wait for price to come in here and then look for my POI to the left, which was this inefficiency fill. If we zoom down to the lower time frames, go to the 1 minute. Yeah, here we go. We obviously had this inefficiency that was yet to be filled. We broke scalp structure over here. Now, an important thing to note is that even though we didn't have a clear BOS and this was just scalp structure, notice how we sustained price above the POI. We didn't break below it. We maintained price action above, which showed an unwillingness to move lower. If we go to the 4 minute, what actually happened is we had a beautiful sponsored candle printed and a inefficiency fill, so right about here, and that was tapped perfectly. If you took this from here, your stop loss would have been right about, you could have had it even below the sponsored candle, 4.5 pips, and so far you would have been in about 15% profit for that. So obviously we had after entry we had a nice clean multiple BOS to the upside, even as far as obviously this is the upside target up here. And for next week, this is actually what I'm looking for. So 10, 15, 20, 20 minute, yeah, that's it. So this is obviously our new trading range. Let's just do it from here. Now, assuming that this here is the top, I want to be looking at some premium price points for my reference over here. Now, these are just inefficiencies, and this inefficiency here does line up with previous market structure, but again, it goes back to following price's narrative, which was in tier 2, what we had was an inefficiency fill, a sponsored candle. Sponsored candle, price came up, came down, rejected off the sponsored candle, and created a new sponsored candle, which is now unmitigated. And look at this beautiful SC. It's literally full body, and after that, we had a nasty reaction to the upside. So, what I want to look for is a return into this price point over here and look to take this trade. Hopefully, get some form of BOS, return into discount, and take this thing higher. And obviously, this also lines up with this inefficiency here. So now you got could even consider the this whole region here, to be honest. But if you wanted to be more specific, and I say this whole region because it could very much well just tap off the open of that SC, and this whole POI is about 5 pips. So I'd personally leave it like this, but if you want to have a more specific region, you could look for this here. But yeah, that's all I have for this week. It's pretty much it, to be honest. These are most of the pairs you guys already are looking at anyway, so hopefully it's all good. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.